Welcome to Housing Developments.
I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Welcome. Happy post-Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the office after a few days off.
Yeah.
You had a good Thanksgiving?
It was pretty solid. Yeah.
Good.
Stayed in town. That's always a good thing, right?
We did too. It was very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we get rolling.
Absolutely. First, let's thank our sponsor,
That's right.
LG Pro Builder.
Let's build a good life together. Thank them if we can't do what we do without them. So great to have LG Pro Builder with us.
Absolutely. And I think we also should introduce our guest.
That's
since
right.
Everybody can see him.
That's right.
Washington County, Wisconsin, Executive Josh Schoemann. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hang tight, Josh, or jump in if you want. But Jim and I usually kind of chat a little bit about kind of the what's going on in the world and what we've missed this last 2 weeks, right? Because we're asked last week. So Trump's cabinet secretaries. Any kind of surprises other than the big one in terms of
yeah, I mean, I think some of the Matt Gaetz one was interesting when it first came out. Obviously, that came with a whole boatload of controversy, and that didn't last too long. It got too big, and clearly he was going to lose support on the Senate side. So he pulled out, and I will say this time they're coming out quickly. It's not just by tweet, right? We're actually watching. We're actually the cabinet's moving pretty quickly. It's some unusual names, but remember, Trump's always been a disruptor.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that
definitely happening again. Yeah.
That's right. That we were going to see some of that. So as we evaluate them, and we've got members that are calling us, hey, I know this person, I know that person.
Yeah.
Every new Congress and new administration is an opportunity for us to make new friends and talk about the issues that are important to us. And I think we'll have the same thing with this cabinet.
Sure. Let's talk about the big one. Scott Turner nominated for HUD Secretary.
That's right. Yeah. Texas, former NFL player.
But not really a housing insider per se, right?
Yeah, I think not but we saw Ben Carson, 8 years ago now. So again, I think that gives us an opportunity to bring our issues to the forefront. I know I've talked to several of our Texas members who know him personally. They go to church with him. So I think we're going to have some good inroads there. Plus, I think he's like-minded and lower regulations, more housing, and we know that was what was talked about on the campaign trail by former president, now President-elect Trump, soon to be President Trump again, so it's just another opportunity for us to engage.
Yeah, and it's actually, this is not really political, but it's just a matter of fact. I mean, we did not have a great relationship for the first. I've been with NHB for 22 years, right? Yeah. It was the first time that I really didn't feel that engagement with HUD that we've always had as any kind of issue that came about, we always kind of had this kind of where are they kind of aspect to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, Secretary Fudge and now Secretary Todman. I think they're getting a lot of their marching orders from the White House and the West Wing in particular, especially coming to energy efficiency. They were going to do the FHA 21 IEC CPs. They were told to do that, whether they agreed with it or not. Right. And an FHA Commissioner Julia Gordon, I think she puts on a brave face and she talks about how it's important to do these things. So we always had a fine relationship with them. But a lot of it wasn't. I don't think it was as good a give and play or give and take as we've had in the past. But we managed to do some things together, and some things we butted heads a little bit.
I'm saying, like, partisanship aside, we've always put partisanship away and talked about housing, right? And I just never got that vibe, And again, I'm not talking politics here. I'm just talking about it just a general sense because we worked with the Obama administration, we worked with the Bush, and I always felt like, God, we have that strength between us that we can really accomplish things.
Yeah, and like I said, I would say we there was certainly an open door. I think we were just frustrated that I don't think we had as a big impact over the last 4 years, and I think we usually have done. Maybe that's the point you're making, man.
That's a good way of saying it. Okay, so we've made them wait long enough. Right. Okay, so Washington County Executive Josh Schoemann, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Washington County, Wisconsin.
Right?
I'm sorry, 131 Washington County.
That's interesting. Oh, funny.
Good point. Okay, so let's talk. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about your background, and then let's talk about this new program that. Well, first of all, is it a new program?
It is a relatively new program. It is almost 5 years old already. Right, but let me start by saying, rest assured, you have an ally in Washington County, Wisconsin. You're never going to wonder if the county executive is going to pick up your call.
Right.
Yay.
I appreciate That's excellent.
All right, so tell me first how you got involved in politics in general, and then what got you going with the next generation housing.
Yeah, so politics in general, I lost a bet. No, I'm just kidding. So I was actually in government administration. I'm a recovering bureaucrat. I was the county administrator in Washington County.
Okay.
Up until about 5 years ago, they changed the office from appointed to elected.
Okay.
I kind of went around the country and applied for jobs and decided, no, Washington County's home. Why would I leave? I was born there. My kids have been raised there.
Sure.
And so ran for office 5 years ago and have been in it since. How did I get into housing? It really came down to I was trying to figure out how do we get our kids to stay home and come back home in Washington County.
Yeah.
We're a suburban, exurban county to Milwaukee County,
Okay.
so southeastern Wisconsin. And we've always really struggled with bringing our kids back or keeping them. And the more research and study I did, the more it became very obvious to me that the first and biggest hurdle is housing.
Yeah.
If they can't afford to live there,
Right.
they're not coming back.
Right.
And right about that time, so this was 2020, just a few years earlier, I had read a book called Hillbilly Elegy. It resonated with me.
Who wrote that?
Yeah, I can't think of it. But anyway, he's a really good guy, super sharp.
Whatever happened to him?
Yeah, something, I'm sure. But yeah, so I read that book, and then it led me to a couple other books, including Bowling Alone and by Robert Putnam. And it just kept this kind of snowball effect. And it led me to housing's a kind of a baseline issue. And you got to start there, solve that, get our kids back. And then there's a whole myriad of issues we can solve after that.
Right. So let's get a little bit in terms of more detail into this program. Okay,
Yeah.
so walk us from start to finish. You've laid out a little bit what it is. How do you do it?
Yeah, so there's two components to what we do. We have two almost separate programs that can work together. One we call Next Generation Housing. So it's very much let's build houses like we did post World War II. Again, we can do that.
Yeah.
We've regulated the ability to do it away. Am I speaking your language?
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah,
Preach.
I mean, all of my reading, all of what I've studied to get us to this point is the cost of lots, the cost of labor, the cost of land is what's driving all of the expense.
Yeah.
We've stopped building post Great Recession. How do we get back to it? And so basically, we took the opportunity when I first got elected to kind of lay out. We want to solve this housing issue. How do we do it? Other counties around us had tried. And quite honestly, I started writing up this plan in the form of a kind of a hypothesis type question and thought, I don't know how the heck are we ever going to solve this? I don't have the money to get to it. And then ARPA happened. And I went, now we've got a path. So then this is probably October of 2021 when we kicked it off. And we spent pretty much the next 12 to 18 months just refining a plan and bringing everybody together. It was local zoning administrators, municipal administrators, realtors, builders, developers, title companies, anybody and everybody you can think of who's got a finger in the pie of housing. And we came up with basically a program that is about helping to deregulate and allow for that home of yesteryear, the starter home from the 1950s to be built again. I always tell people, we're 5 years down the road. We've probably moved the ball one rotation down the hill, and we got another mile to go, but there aren't a lot of folks that have moved it at all. So we've got progress.
So you took that ARPA money, American Recovery Plan, right? Was that it?
I think so.
Yeah. It was that was the Biden administration
Yes.
post-COVID money, right?
It was.
And so how are you? So what size homes are you targeting to build? And then how do you get that home price low enough to attract those first-time buyers?
Yeah, so the ARPA money, the money that I lobbied against, and then we got, and then we had to figure out how to spend it. The first priority was how do we create a return on investment? And this is a sweet spot, right? You build homes and you build equity for people, and then I call it a prosperity cycle. Prosperous families create prosperous businesses, which create prosperous communities. So for us, what we did is we took about $10 million of our ARPA money. We got approximately $26 million, and the first 7.5 went towards helping leverage down the development costs,
Right, okay.
predominantly infrastructure or
Right.
land.
Sure.
So we'll give zero interest loans to builders and developers, and with the intent of helping to cover those costs. When they sell our houses, we get our dollars back. We've also now started to incorporate it into TIF districts,
Right.
where the TIF brownfields specifically. So taking old properties,
Right.
tearing them down, redeveloping them. And then most recently, we've gotten into covering the costs of building permits up to a certain amount. We try to cover 75 to 100% of the costs, but only for homes that are in the $340,000 range to the $420,000 range. For us, that is the sweet spot for the median household income in Washington County. So it can be components of grant or forgivable loan or loan, but kind of the old throwback FHA model when we were financing developments for next to nothing, and then allowing the development to kind of pay it back. I tell people all the time, we've done all of this before. It's not rocket science to do it again. We just have to think differently than we have for the last 30 years.
You make it sound so simple, but it seems like you created a great coalition, right? A lot of moving parts.
Absolutely, yeah.
What were your biggest challenges? What were the things that really kind of tripped you up, if anything?
Well, there's been plenty. I mean, holding a coalition like that together, one, they all have disparate interests, and everybody's jockeying for their piece of the pie. And I think the secret sauce was build the plane while it flies. Don't try to build it first and then fly it, because you'll never get to flying it. So we've spent most of our time building it in flight. And I would say some of the things that held us up were municipalities that really don't want to let go of those regulations. They're heavily invested in 2-inch thick zoning codes, 2-inch thick subdivision codes, 4-inch thick comprehensive plans.
You're also speaking our language.
Well, and what's funny about this is I also tell people all the time, 100 years ago, those zoning codes that were recommended by the federal government were, 12 pages total. And now they're 6 inches thick. Like, we've created this, which means we can decreate it or recreate it. And so I think those are some of the things that have been our biggest hurdles. And then, of course, NIMBYism has been a challenge.
Right. That's really interesting.
So, do you think that this model, and I know the answer, but I'll let you explain it. Do you think that's something that can be duplicated across the country? Is this something that you think is not unique to your neck of the woods, but something that we can do nationally?
Yeah, absolutely. Unequivocally, yes. I think one of the things that's exciting about President Trump and J.D. Vance coming back into the White House, and the things that they've already been talking about, deregulating and creating opportunity for home ownership, that is where we have zeroed in our focus, is home ownership, because it allows for that generational wealth builder, the greatest generational wealth builder in America, for many people in the middle class and below. And so I think that resonates with this administration. We've done this before, so I don't think it'll take a lot of convincing. And I have a sneaking suspicion that President Trump and J.D. Vance are skeptical of all of the priorities that the previous administration had in spending all that federal money. And maybe it would be better to invest it this way and let people earn the opportunity at home ownership. Let them go on their own, and you'll be amazed at the prosperity that grows.
So what's the advice that you would give most to people who want to duplicate what
I think if you took next generation housing, you replicated it at the federal level, we'd look back to the 1930s and go, wow, that's almost exactly like what we did then in the 40s post World War II.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, so I just kind of pivoting off that, but it's just kind of a broader political question. So how do you as a county executive interact with an administration? Whether it's Biden administration or the incoming Trump administration, tell me how it works for you where the federal government overlays and makes your life either easier or harder, other than what you've just talked about. But tell me a little bit about that kind of lobbying. You talk about lobbying for ARPA. Talk a little bit about your relationship with the Washington, D.C. folks.
Well, it's remote. Let me put it that way. Okay, so for us, I would say shy of ARPA, which was, of course, huge impact at municipal level, all across the country. Counties, towns, villages, cities. Aside from that, it's pretty much leave us alone and we'll leave you alone, to be quite honest with you. And what we are hearing from constituents generally about concerns they have at the federal level. And so our local congressman, Scott Fitzgerald, has been great. And prior to him, Jim Sensenbrenner was phenomenal at being responsive to constituent services type issues. But that was pretty much the limit for us. Now, as I've gotten deeper and deeper into housing issues, I'm talking to folks all the time at the federal level about you have to get back to where this all started. Like when people say, well, I don't want a government subsidized house, they don't understand what they're saying. Like if you have a mortgage, you have a government subsidized house. You understand?
That's right.
And it takes a little while to get them there. So when I say NIMBYs have been one of our challenges, what I always start with when I get a group of people who I know are upset is I say, tell me the first house that you ever owned. How many square feet was it? What size was the lot? How much was the mortgage on that home? And tell your neighbor. And they start and they give them 60 seconds. Then they tell their neighbor and they're getting all excited. And then I ask one person to tell me what it was like. And almost every answer is the same. Oh, it was 1,200 square feet on a quarter-acre lot. Right. Depending on when they bought it, it was very affordable mortgage. Like, that house doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, the typical starter home.
It's illegal to build it in most places in America.
Right.
And they're like, no. I'm like, yes, it very much is.
That's right.
And so I think getting that message back to the feds, take those dollars and incentivize municipalities to unwind that regulatory hurdle. Yeah. We believe it's somewhere between $60,000 and $90,000 in regulatory costs for every home that's built in Washington County.
Wow.
And I'm sure all across the country
that jives.
Yeah, that gets even bigger.
We have to get you in front of DOGE, the Department of Government and Efficiency, and get you in front of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Washington County was the original DOGE. I've been there 5 years. Yeah. We've reduced the size of government in every metric you could list right now.
Wow, Josh just did a mic drop. We were the original. We were the OG.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. So what brings you to DC? So you're obviously we're in the studio today, but tell us what brings you to DC. We talked a little bit before we jumped on.
So we're at a conference here in town, and with the elections just passing, it seemed like a great opportunity to get up on the Hill and talk to legislators who we don't interact with very often. Right. And one of the key topics is to talk about our next generation housing program. The other one I should tell you about, you might be interested in, although you'd probably be more interested if this was the realtors, but it also applies to new homes, but it's housing in general. So we have a down payment incentive program that we did. So the other $2.5 million of that 10 that I talked about goes to this down payment incentive. And this is what's kind of fun about it. I'm a veteran from Iraq in 2003. I'm beneficiary of a VA loan multiple times over. And so the idea with this one was very much the same. But as you probably know, less than 1% of the population serves anymore. Right. Yeah. So instead of service first and then the benefit, we just kind of flipped that on its head. So this program sits as a second mortgage. It's we call it a down payment incentive. So it's 10% of the value of the home up to $20,000. So you can apply. If you qualify for a mortgage, you qualify for this. And then that $20,000, as it sits, you can earn it back. So if you volunteer at a local nonprofit or church in Washington County, for every hour you donate, $25 is deducted. For every dollar you donate to them, 70 cents is deducted. So basically, in 5 years' time, you can earn off that second mortgage.
Wow,
that's pretty cool.
If you don't want to do anything, you just pay it off.
Right,
you just pay it off. And if you don't pay it off, we've got a deed restriction, and so when you sell the home, we get our $20,000 back.
Wow,
that's incredible.
It's been phenomenal.
And has anyone balked at it? I mean, obviously, it's enormously successful. Both programs are successful, but you found that it works just fine.
It's incredible. The down payment incentive in particular. I mean, first of all, seeing people in the community giving back, going to events and be like, oh yeah, I just met you. It's pretty cool. But also in addition to that, the number of hours that they're giving, and I think the amount of time. So that we've put out, I think, 2 rounds now of incentives. We're up to close to $3 million in incentive dollars out there. And in less than 30 days, we open it. In less than 30 days, it's closed.
Wow.
And the list, waiting list is quite long.
Because there's a thirst for housing. People want to get into housing,
That's
right?
right.
That's amazing.
I tell builders all the time, like, Josh, why would we build a quarter-acre lots and 1,200 square foot homes? And I said, and no basements. I've been an advocate of no basements. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
And they're like, I'm not sure if we should really do that. Is there a market? I'm like, there's nowhere else to go. Especially my job. I'm the oldest of millennials. The ones below me, like, their rent is out of control, and they literally have no choices. Just give them an opportunity. They'll
to build that equity and get a little piece for their own. I completely agree. And I we hear that a lot too. Oh, the builders don't want to build at that first time
price point.
Price point because they can't make any money. And I think that is a completely specious argument.
Absolutely.
I think they will build if they could build it affordably. But the point is, to your point, if it's $90,000 more to build, due to government regulation, if you knocked even just half of that off, they would build in that space. I firmly believe that.
This is where I think right now, especially with interest rates doing what they're doing, if you can provide a zero interest loans from a government perspective and say, pay us back over 20 or 30 years. just to create that equity for people. I mean, the win-win, the ROI on that, it's hard to measure.
Right.
I mean, it's that big, right?
Well, it's community stability, it's family
Absolutely.
stability. I mean, all of the things that homeownership provides, right? It seems the federal government has always been in the business of promoting homeownership. Has been in the tax code through the mortgage interest deduction, in the creation of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA. Like homeownership is indelibly imprinted on America, right? And so, but we've gotten away from helping people get into that first rung. We talk a lot about it.
Time.
Homeownership is a ladder. You need to get more people on that first rung because homeownership is the gateway to the middle class in this country. You said it earlier. It's the way to build wealth. It's not the stock market. It's not your 401k. It's not your pension. It's your home first and foremost. And giving people a little piece of the rock is a famous who's that Prudential? But anyway, but you feel like you're getting something that's really important. What an awesome success story.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean it's been very exciting, and as I said, the ball's moved one rotation. We got another mile to go, but to your point, I mean, especially my generation who's working all these side hustles and the gig economy. A lot of them don't have 401ks and they don't have IRAs and. That home is that for them, and especially when you get to folks who are even more blue collar, these are the folks that President Trump and J.D. Vance got elected by. I really think there's opportunity here, and I'm hopeful that we have some success replicating our program nationally.
One last question: is this a bipartisan program? Are you saying support on both sides?
Absolutely.
I think that's a key.
We have had a number of ribbon cuttings and launches and all these things, and I will give credit to Senator Baldwin. She has always had staffers at our events, talking about how great these programs are and there are things that should be replicated. And the same thing can be said for Congressman Fitzgerald, who's just down the road from us. So, we've got folks on both sides of the aisle. Yeah. Wisconsin's program, they built one. It's got similar components to ours, and they sat down and worked with us and talked to us about how we did ours. And if you look at the pieces they built, very, very similar to what we did.
Right.
Well, local governments are always, in my mind, they're always the best incubators of the best ideas, not the federal government. And this is a great one that should trickle up, not what usually happens in federal government pushes it down. So, well, that does it for this week. Josh, thanks for being with us. It was great to have you. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
It's awesome.
Once again, let's thank LG Pro Builder.
Yeah, let's build a good life together. Thank them for being here and being with us.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next time.
That's it.
I'm Jim Tobin.
I'm Paul Lopez.
See you.
Bye.